Winter Fish Fest 2021. Stay safe and be responsible, CFN.
I got myself a rock bass.
Stay safe and be responsible, CFN.
Stay safe and responsible, CFN.
Stay safe and be responsible. I got giant perch. We're gonna measure him. He is measuring at 4 1/4.
The walleye submission. Stay safe and responsible, CFN. And Shimano rules.
I've never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend.
Got myself submission number 1, small little crappie. Be safe, stay safe, and be responsible.
Some reason she said
my little perch ballot in. Everyone be responsible and stay safe, CFN. And take someone fishing.
Stay safe and be responsible, CFN.
Stay safe, be responsible.
Stay safe, CFN. Be responsible while you're out ice fishing. And we're gonna let this quick girl back here.
Yeah, baby.
Well, good evening. I was about to say good morning, but I have my mind set on what I'm going to do first. And it was pointed out to me that Sarah Jinkerson, I never say hello. Sarah, welcome to the show. Trisha, Tony, Lyndon, Corey, how you doing? Steve Shaw's in the house. Mike Morenz, yeah, baby. Corey's son, River Reaper, yeah, babe. Scott Stewart, hola, my friend. Yes, Easterners, we are in the midst of a windstorm out this way. Scott, I don't know what your weather's like, but it has been a roller coaster this winter of wind, rain, and lots of snow out your way. Mike Gilchrist is in the house. As you can tell, we are in the midst of our Winter Fish Fest, and things are they're ramping right up. We have some incredible contestants and entries and submissions and fish. And I want to keep doing those videos, basically to celebrate your work, all your work, being responsible, staying safe, and enjoying our passion, which, of course, is fishing. And the way Mike and I got it set up this year, obviously, was to speak to COVID, but also to allow some interesting stuff, which, of course, as Sarah in her submission, that whopper of a perch, because there is the smallest fish category as well as the largest. And currently right now, I got to congratulate Dan, and I'm going to butcher his last name, so I'm just going to say Dan K from Team All Jacked Up and his 44-inch pike. Incredible, dude. There was a few comments in the thread that asked how in the heck you got that through a hole. I never thought about that, but yeah, that was a feat in itself. Extremely impressive. Mike Robertson, how you doing? Plus 10. Like, haven't you guys been in like the minus 20s? Now it's plus 10? Holy, I'm assuming you guys got a serious flood going on, plus 10 degrees. It looked warm though from your post. And of course, those vintage Rapalus, those spinners. I do have a mitt full myself. Well, a handful. I don't know how many, but yeah, you know what, Mike? If I get out to Alberta, I'm going to come see you, buddy, and I am going to christen that jet boat of yours. Captain Kevin's in the house. How you doing, Captain Kevin? Dan, yeah, well, Dan, as I said, but congratulations. Take a bow. Pat yourself on the back. That 44-inch pike was outstanding. But, you know, we've got guys like Alexander and Bill Landry. You know, I don't put anything past those two. They have a habit of catching some big fish. And it's nice to see the engagement, nice to see new anglers, some of which we've featured in some of the videos that we're doing. And I promise you we're going to be doing more of, because as I said, I love celebrating our community, and I love celebrating our events, and I love seeing the passion. I think some of the videos have been really, really cool, man. Talking to Steve Shaw about it, and you know, there's been a couple, even Mike said, brings a tear to your eye, man, just to see our family getting together, doing what we love to do, which of course is fishing. Big shout out, thank you to, of course, Rosie, who was our guest last week, and Yvonne, who was our guest host. Yvonne, you hit it out of the park again. You brought another gem of a person to Ladies' Night, and I look forward to our segment. I believe it's going to be the 22nd of March is what it is pegged as. But we wish Rosie nothing but the best in her Prairie Gal fishing program. I believe Clam Outdoors just recently did something to help her out. So it's onwards and upwards for Rosie and all of her endeavors with Prairie Gal. But we really enjoyed having her last week. It was really cool listening to Rosie talk about her road, her journey to where we all are, which is, of course, anglers. Fernando, how you doing? Mac's Secret Shop. Yeah, baby. Daryl, yes. I'm so glad that Daryl chimed in here. Big shout out to Walter and Taylor. Kenosee Lodge in Saskatchewan had the luxury of a makeshift CFN meet and greet. And Walter did a fantastic job highlighting that resort and that outfitter who, as I said, seems like it's got quite the body of water with quite the fishery. Daryl was mentioning that I believe they caught 700 odd fish the one day, the Sunday, I believe it was. Anyway, really cool of Walter to do that. And I'm looking forward to CFNers doing a lot more of that when it comes to highlighting some of our local tackle shops, some of our local outfitters. For no other reason right now, more so than ever with COVID and its stranglehold, and hopefully it's starting to loosen. We got to pump some money into our industry, and since the borders are closed, they can't count on that American dollar. So guys like Mike Robertson and all of our wicked guys, charters and outfitters need a boost. So, if you can scrummage some money together and book a charter, book a guide. Sparkus is on here as well. I'm sure he's got spots available on Lake St. Clair. So, do what we can to help out our industry and those who, it's going to be a different year as it was last year. It's going to be a different year with the border still closed. These guys, they got to make a living, and we need to do our best to help them out. So big shout out to Walter. But on behalf of Daryl, he wants to thank Taylor, of course, Kelly DeLorme, Joshua, Bobby, Jordan, Craig, and his boy Jags for the memorable weekend out at Kenosee, as well as Walter, who basically spearheaded the whole thing. So big shout out to our Saskatchewan group. You guys did us proud, buddy. Anthony Stevens, another year I won't be operating. See, and this is it. We're going to have to find ways to hopefully support you guys in some way. I'm not sure how. I'm still thinking of how we're going to do it, but we've got to do something to help you guys and gals out. Speaking of which, our CFN jersey, the new and improved, is available. Richard Dunlop's done a great job, and apparently we're doing quite well with them being sold. So I want to thank, on behalf of myself, Richard, and our entire CFN community, including the legacy members, thanks, guys. We don't make a lot off them because we try to keep the prices down for you guys. But it just means a lot when you throw that on your back. It's like wearing our flag and advertising it and pumping our tires, and we do try to do our best in return. But that is the ultimate. There's nothing like when we do photo edits, and I'm speaking on behalf of Walter and Steve when I say this. When we do photo edits, when you guys make that your profile pic or share it to your own page, it means the world. It's the ultimate pat on the back. It's it's so small and may seem so insignificant, but it isn't. It's huge, and we're so thankful to have you guys doing that on a regular basis. I'm going to let you in on a little bit of a secret when it comes to swag. Tom Priest has done a fantastic job making some of our swag available to us. He is going to be launching, and I don't want to say too much, but there's going to be a signature series swag edition that we will be featuring hopefully in the coming weeks, where it's in the prototype position right now. We're just putting it together as we speak. It's at the R&D stage, so stay tuned to that. But signature series CFN, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So you're going to have to hang on to that. But that's all I'm going to say for now. Congrats to last month's CFN photo contest winner. Again, just like Dan's last name, Camille. I will literally butcher this last name, so I'm going to do you a solid and just say congratulations, Camille B. Because if I were to try to attempt saying that name, I might actually trip over my tongue. Anyway, guys, this night, as we mentioned at the forefront in our promo today, this is all about GUSSY, and we're going to bring on Big Jim real shortly, as well as Lawrence and Jason BARNUCZ, who we feature each and every Monday. But Big Jim, we actually started late because we were talking about GUSSY, and Jim was talking to him. So there's a lot of stuff that Jim's going to share with us that brought GUSSY to the stage with the trophy and in #1 spot. And it's actually a really cool story because there's a few videos we're going to be sharing, and some really outstanding feats were met by GUSSY throughout this tournament. And for a guy like myself who doesn't know a whole heck of a lot about bass tournaments, I was really intrigued to hear some of the stuff, and actually even the way that sportscasters were talking about him, and the fact that he's been featured on, the Toronto Star news feeds. Like it, as Jim said at one point yesterday, you couldn't go on Facebook or social media for that matter and not see something about our snow leopard, Jeff GUSSY Gustafson. So yeah, such an amazing angler, and really, Alicia's such an amazing person. Even when he was up there with his acceptance speech, very humble, just an extremely humble guy. I know Jim and I are going to try and work to get him on Friday night session and talk to him about his win. But as I said, he's a solid, and you can tell he is well respected and well revered in the industry. Anyway, enough from me. Let's get to our panel. Let's get to our featured guests. But before we introduce the one, the only Big Jim McLAUGHLIN, here is GUSSY on stage during his acceptance speech.
From day #1, he has led this wire to wire. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, hold it high. Oh, Canada! The Tennessee River gets peppered by the great Canadian snow leopard. Jeff Gustafson dominates the guaranteed rate Bassmaster Elite on the Tennessee River. GUSSY gets it done and finishes in spot #1. And for the second time in as many years, the Big Blue Trophy goes north of the border. Let's hear it for him, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, Jim, proud moment for you, I bet.
I'm a happy camper.
I bet you are.
Happy camper. I've loved that boy from he was a teenager. I met him through Gord Pizer. And there's not a week goes by we don't talk on the phone, sometimes more. He writes for us in Just Fishing. He shares a lot of stuff with us here. And, he had some tough times in life, and he persevered. He's just he's an amazing, as I said, he's a gem of a human being. And that's what makes it all, you don't have to be like that, but he is. And it's just so real. And I had a couple of guys from the States that I spoke with today that were down that way, and they told me, we were at the weigh-in, and we don't know him. We just couldn't believe what a guy he was. Like, he's on the water and there's guys watching him, and I don't know exactly what was said, but it was something like, he said, is this spot good, guys? Like, thinking that when he leaves to go to the weigh-in, are they going to plunder it? And one guy told him, don't worry, buddy, nobody's fishing here. they would have put the run to anybody. The good old boys in the backwoods of Tennessee.
And really, Jim, a true testament, as you mentioned, just a solid guy. We've had the pleasure, you get to talk to him far more than we do, but he came to our CFN community, and as the whole time he was here, even leading up to it, just a humble guy, man. Like I just a solid dude, and as you said, struggled with confidence at times, and let's face it, that is not an easy. And I know I'm speaking to the converted when I speak to you about it. That is not an easy gig, Bastard.
The pressure on that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine him laying in the hotel on Thursday night wondering if he's going to go back to a pile of rocks that 95% of the people who fish couldn't find with a GPS? And he goes back. Well, I shouldn't say a pile of rocks. It was just some some little spots. But it's just, to go back to something like that and just manage to milk it day after day and stay right on top of the fish, when the locals said it would be almost impossible to do. It's just it's an amazing thing. Yeah, he had a cool person riding home with him this morning. I'm sure he wouldn't have had a hard time getting across the border with this person. he sent me this. He had it sitting beside him on the seat the whole way home.
That's amazing.
So it's kind of cool.
And it's great, Jim. Like, we're getting a lot of testimonials about Gussy. Kevin mentioned something about Gussy donated a day on the water with him at the AYA Derby. Sparkus, I spent some time chatting, and he is an absolutely amazing guy. Alicia says the same thing. Yes, Sean, you're 100% right. Second Canadian to do what he's done. But Gussy, I don't know. He seems to have that place in everybody's heart. I don't want to say he's an angler's angler, but boy, does he ever represent, the majority of us. Very humble. Certainly hasn't been handed anything. He's had to work for just about everything.
Oh yeah, everything's been tough for him. I mean, he had Gord Pizer mentor him in the beginning, and then he just took it and ran with it. Just like Gord's doing with Liam now.
Yes,
his grandson. Liam is a wonderful fisherman. I haven't met him yet. In fact, I found out just a couple of weeks ago that he's down here 20 minutes away from me in Queen's University.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I gotta make it a point with the COVID thing that to get together with him. Actually, we're wide open here. You can do pretty well whatever you want here right now, and it's staying that way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice, but no, he's a wonderful person. I just saw Colin Staff say there, yeah, he represents Canadians very, very well. There's the guy that won the first Canadian championship that they had in Canada, right there, Colin Staff.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that because bass fishing. Colin won it the year before it started to grow up. Like the first year they actually had it organized and they did something, and then he won it, and then I got it the year after, and then within 2 or 3 years it just blossomed and became what it became.
Now I know you were talking to him on the way home, as you just mentioned, and of course he had the blue trophy strapped in tight in the passenger seat, riding shotgun. I know he was hoping to get on and possibly talk to us tonight. Fingers were definitely crossed that we'd have a chance.
Yeah, he was getting home about an hour ago, 2 hours ago when he was home. He camped out in Chicago just outside Chicago at a buddy's last night and got a few hours sleep, and then he was headed home. So it's we'll definitely get him on. We had him on once. We'll get him again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But for no other reason than just to tip our hats and give him a CFN salute to that. Just, I don't know, man. You made us proud.
It was so funny when he phoned this morning. My phone was sitting on the table beside me, and Tammy and I had just finished our breakfast, and we're about to head out. She goes skating, and I go to the gym, and it was like 5 to 7, quarter to 7, something like that. And she said, who's phoning you at this time? And I looked over and I saw his name. And I said, oh, it's that Gustafson kid. Where's my phone? Quick, get it. Has it got enough battery power?
That's awesome. Well, you listen, the Johnson boys do us proud, and Gussy as well. Every time we watch every time we watch one of these events, we're hoping that one of these three are in the top 10 at least, if not leading. And as they mentioned, from start to finish, Jim.
Yeah, it's incredible. There was never a time in the tournament. I'm like 99% sure there was never a time he was behind.
Incredible.
Never a time that his name was not at the top of the leaderboard right from when they started the first cast. You know, like I said, I had guys text me this morning saying, "Oh, he hasn't registered a fish," or yesterday morning, he hasn't registered a fish. His fish have moved. They're all in a panic, eh? Like it was just priceless, you know. But I said, though, give them a chance. He's got a 45-minute ride up the river to get to the fish.
So speaking of which, and you know, again, we have talked in great length about the kind of person that Gussie is and how deserving he is of this win. But walk us through what was different about his approach than the other anglers that participated in this tournament.
Well, see, with him I mean, the southern guys are really targeted toward the largemouths more if they can, and it's generally until they come north what the deal is. And, you know, like Zona said on the shows when they were talking, you know, they spoke with some locals that are pretty darn good fishermen. You know, they may not be fishing in the Elite Series, but they give any of those guys a run any day. Mm-hmm. And it's when they say that it can't be done, you know, like they ask them, what's the wild card factor? Well, somebody catching 5 18-inch smallmouths a day for 4 days. It can't be done. Nobody will ever do it. Well, he found a spot where the fish wintered, and they group up when they winter. They get into the same area for the same reason. Just like in the summertime, you'll catch them in a different area, and they're there for the same reason because they want to eat. You know, they're all there for the food. Well, in the wintertime, they're there for sort of like a little less current. We'll still eat, but we're not going to eat at the same rate because we don't digest at the same rate because they're cold-blooded, and there's a whole bunch of factors to take into place. But the other guys wouldn't be doing it because, like you mentioned, I hadn't heard that he caught more smallmouths than the rest of the field.
Dude, let me share this because this was just, I mean, you're going to see the kind of last day he had, but just listen to the commentator. If you haven't seen this really took me by surprise.
That is such an impressive feat.
You're that Canadian war hoop.
Well, he's probably caught more smallmouth in his 4 days of competition, him alone, than the other 99 pros in their 4 days of competition combined.
Like that's just outstanding. Wow.
Yeah. But see, they weren't looking for them.
Right.
Because they tell you, oh, you can't catch them. They're out in the deep water. Well, to a guy who spent his whole life fishing in deep water, like I think that's part of the reason why I adapted to bass fishing as well as I did, because I spent a lot of time in the Ottawa River,
right,
in 20, 30, 40 feet of water, a lot of time around that 25 to 34, 32, 27 to 32, that type of depth. So for me to go fish in deep water meant nothing. But if you haven't done it, a lot of these southern guys, like if there isn't a chance of the boat hitting the bottom, like they don't want to be there.
Right. Right.
And it's that type of thing, you know, and it's just a different game. These guys would not be looking for these fish, but for him to do it, that's why I'm really surprised. Chris Zaldane didn't get on them. In fact, Chris Zaldane almost sniffed those fish out too, right? He was really close to them. And I mean, if Zaldane would have got on them, he's capable of catching them. He just missed them.
No, so he mentioned that too, and I know TJ, he thanked him and was so gracious to Zaldane in regards to allowing him the spot. And you had mentioned was it the first or second day when he started to pull out fish, Zaldane completely went somewhere else.
Yeah, he didn't come back the second day. He left them alone. He didn't have a chance to win. He had a tournament that was so horrible for him. It was incredible. But, Gussie found that place at the end of the day on the last practice day, coming out of 5 feet of water, just having caught some little largemouths that were just around that 14-inch thing to keep. You got to remember, to have a smallmouth in your possession, it has to be 18 inches long. Right. The vast majority of smallmouths that you catch, that river doesn't have the giants like we have up here in the Great Lakes, like, where you bring in a 6-pounder and people go, oh, no, that's a nice one. Like I joke all the time about the tournaments. Mm-hmm. But, catching the big fish in Simcoe that time and, people wanted their pictures taken with it. It's all relative. It's like catching a 12-pound largemouth in Florida. it's a big fish, but it happens often, so it doesn't mean the same. You know, you catch a 7-pounder or 8-pounder up here, and people are bent because you just don't get them, and it's all relative. But no, man, he was coming out of that bay, and he decided to fish that spot. He caught a couple, and thought to himself, geez, you know, maybe I come here, I catch a couple of largemouths in the back there, I come out here, it's not far, get a few smallmouths, I salvage a day, whatever. But he caught those smallmouths in the morning really quick on the first day, and he had almost 18 pounds the first day.
It's impressive.
Which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
When he had those fish, he went and fished for largemouth for the next 6 hours and caught a couple that might have stretched out and made the limit at 14 inches.
Right.
So that's when he said to himself, not a chance am I going to go fish for largemouths here. I just spent two and a half days looking for them, and I couldn't await a limit from the 2.5 days. I'm banging my head on the wall. I don't have enough time left to go look.
So, you know, in your professional opinion, Jim, like, is that a gutsy call to make that early in a tournament?
Yes and no. The 18 pounds sort of makes it way less gutsy.
Right.
After it happened the first day, makes it way less gutsy. But after, like he said, the defining factor was with trying to catch largemouths after he caught the smallies in the morning. Hope, you know, he saw some docks, some stuff like that, you know, thinking that he could catch some big fish. He might sting a 4.5 pounder, which he'd call a 3 1/4 or something, go up. He went to do that. He didn't catch a big fish. And like I said, he caught a couple of little dicky doos, and that was it.
Right.
So he just kept going back to those smallmouths. And of course, every morning he gets there, he gets them reasonably quickly. So the confidence factor, you step up, you roll up your sleeve, you catch a couple of 3-pounders, you get the injection of confidence, and you have no problem staying for the rest of the day. And of course, he tried to expand it, because you saw from the pictures how big that water was.
Huge.
It's like the Ottawa. Yeah, people don't realize some of the places on the Ottawa River, especially when you get down south, how wide it is. Like, it's 1.5 miles, 2 miles wide. It's 300, 400 feet deep. I mean, when it gets further down toward the St. Lawrence, it's just a big crack in the earth. Right? Yeah. It's a giant river, and there's so many places. I mean, when I used to fish for walleyes out there, fishing that giant water like that, you know, we used to back troll. Sometimes we would back troll 15 miles.
Wow.
Just trying to stay in 18 feet of water. Just follow the shore, had the old flasher going, and, you know, and that's how we learned. You know, you'd come to a spot, you'd catch a fish, you'd go back over it, you'd catch another one, you'd stop, you'd jig fish for a while, and this is what these guys do. They go out and they look around, and then they judge it. And, you know, they take all kinds of factors in too. They take in a factor, well, I've got these fish, what happens if the wind blows? Maybe I can't fish for them. See, for most guys to fish in that wind that was blowing the other day, they would have a hard time.
Agreed.
And it wouldn't be any fun, because you're constantly fighting the wind, everything else, you know. For him, and like the Johnson boys and Chris Zaldane, these guys, it means nothing. It means nothing. It means it isn't as much fun, and it's a little harder to do. You have to concentrate a little harder on what you're doing. But I mean, now with things like spot lock and stuff like that, and he had the hummingbird going there. There was a couple of times there you heard him talking, and he said, "Oh, here's one now. Here's one that you could hear him," and plunk, up would come the arm, and he'd set the hook. You know, you're just watching them come to eat. Like, they know that something's there, and they come to get it.
Well, listen, you spoke about it before coming on, which is why we were a tad bit late, because it's a term that I myself have never heard, but you're going to explain to us what it was that was the defining presentation and the way Gus fished to catch all of these smallies. You're going to show us and explain it to us tonight.
Yeah, so basically what you do, and it's something, and I was so happy to hear him mention Ron Linder and James Linder on the stage, and that give those boys do. I mean, Al's won BSS tournaments. If they wanted to be tournament fishermen at the highest level, the Linders, no problem. It's done. They just go compete, and they would win often too. if they wanted to do it. And we know that because James and Alan Ron have won Kenora Bass, the Rainy River, won. Gussy's won that how many times fishing with John that just have Northland Tackle, which is one of his sponsors. Fantastic stuff, which everybody knows. But you basically you're going to fish an area you hope to see fish before you do it. I would say it's usually in water it could be water that was 75 feet deep. It doesn't make that much of a difference on the depth. But what it is the presentation method. It's straight below the boat. Like you're just flicking the jig 10 feet in front of the boat, letting it go down. And you want your line hanging straight below you, just like ice fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And you hang. Generally, they use a fluke. He was using a Z-Man bait, and I haven't got one here to show you. I tried to find some stuff in the garage, but I couldn't find stuff. So I just put a rhythm wave on the jig head like that. So picture yourself with a fluke on that. A fluke is the bait that has a split tail, looks like a minnow,
mm-hmm.
and you have it hang like this underneath the boat. Now, if that was hanging in the water, the tail would be floating, mm-hmm. so it would be straight. And you just hold this thing horizontal. And you gently slip in the boat. You move your lure with the boat, or you hover in the same place. And a lot of times you can catch fish. You could be over 60 feet of water and you see smallmouth down 20 feet. You just drop it down and let it sit there. You just hold it, maybe wobble it up and down a little bit. But you're not jigging and you're not doing this stuff. You do that. You watch the fish on the screen. Watch the fish on the screen. You do this. They're gone.
Right.
They're gone. They just get out of there. And it's really, really hard to do. It's painstaking. It's a pain in the butt to do. And
I would imagine in the wind and the waves, it makes it that much more difficult.
Well, this is where the electronics with spot lock on the Minn Kota. This is where stuff like that just, you turn it off for a second, you drift a few feet back, you hover in the same spot, you let your line, because it has to pendulum behind you, so it has to catch up to you.
Right.
And, I'm not saying you can't drop it to the bottom, but if you do, you're not jigging it on the bottom. You're letting it touch the bottom, bringing it up, and you're just sitting with it like this, the current. And there's always a bit of movement on the boat, so the bait's always got a little bit of movement going up and down. And it's just, you slip is the term, and you just go very, very slowly, very, very slowly. If the fish want to sit up, right beneath you, you stay on top of them, but the object is you don't want to have to use the electric as much, because you got to remember his fish were a little over 20 feet down. So 20 feet's not that far away. People look at, oh my God, that's deep water. Well, if you're standing at the front of the boat, look at the back of the boat. That's how deep it is.
Right.
Are you that far away?
No.
Not really.
Good point.
Not really.
So this presentation, I'm not going to let you let it out of the bag just yet, Jim. I'd be interested to find out the first person who's able to type in the comments what kind of presentation this is, what kind of style of fishing. It has a term. I learned it tonight just before we came on, thankfully, because of Big Jim. I've never heard of it. I know Lawrence, when he was listening as well, had never heard of it. But
I think he thought we were messing with him.
Yeah, well, I thought you were cleaning up something when you mentioned it.
Oh, there's hint number one.
There you go. So Mike Sloan was the first one. Is it mopping or moping?
Well, guys say different ways.
Yeah, but you're right, Mike, Alicia, Colin, Jason. Well, you can tell who the who's who of.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, there's a lot of people here now that know what it is.
Yep.
But ask them when the last time they did it. A lot of people, except for the guys out Lake of the Woods, a lot of them don't do it. A lot of them do not do it. And there was a lot of people probably didn't know what this was called till they saw it yesterday.
Well, it's a technique that I guess I didn't know it had a term, but I will use it regularly for walleye in deep water.
Yep.
And just as you mentioned, you're literally just moving it ever so
but you're not moving it on the bottom, Scotty.
Yeah,
it could be 15 feet down over 60 feet of water. Jimmy Lindner won with Billy Lindner. I think it was the one, not Kenora, but the other one there, the International Falls one. they won that, and I think the fish were like 15, 20 feet underneath the boat, over like 80 feet of water. They were those typical suspended smallmouths, and they saw them underneath the boat, and that's how they caught them.
Yeah. Now, Sean has shared a link to YouTube. I'm assuming that is a link to describe it if people aren't aware of it or don't understand it. Jim's done a fantastic job explaining it. Now, go into detail too, the importance, and he gave a shout out to his buddy who makes these specific type of jig heads.
Yep.
Is there any specific jig that you would recommend works better than others?
The one that Brian makes out there at the shop. I mean, this is what it is basically here.
Okay.
It's just a fish-shaped jig head with a quality hook in it and a screw on it. That's all it is.
Okay.
And most of the time they're using stuff in that, I don't know, I would say depending where you are or how deep you fish, if it's a dead calm day, you can get away with a quarter or a little bit of, I think Gussie was using 3/8 most of the time there when he was fishing in the tournament.
That's it. That's all. 3/8.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because like I say, he's not really down that deep, but I think he said he was using 10-pound braid and the fluorocarbon leader.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course the NRX, rods, the 7.5-foot rods, so you get a good sweep to set the hooks.
Well, yeah, that just before that last video, they show his hook set, and that there was a lot of distance there. But I mean,
and that's with a 7'6" rod.
It was incredible. Like, he literally jumped up as he was setting the hook. But I tell you what a feat. And I mean, this will take probably a little bit for him to sink in. But it truly is an accomplishment for us Canadians to go down in their waters and do this. What does it do? I mean, obviously Gussie's different. Everybody is very, I would say, jumping on the bandwagon and celebrating with him, as they should. Solid guy, solid dude, and a great representation of Canada. But does this upset the Americans when you get Canadians winning these series?
So.
No.
I really don't believe it. There's people that are out there that would be anti-American that would say, "Oh yeah, it's what it is." These guys were really happy for him. Did you see the smile on Steve Kennedy's face looking at Gussie?
Yeah.
Did you see the look on his face?
Yeah.
And I mean, Steve Kennedy is a great guy. He's an incredible guy. I'm assuming he's very wealthy because he does all this, basically without sponsors. He always talks about his old Curado reels. You see him using them. He just uses what he wants to use and things like that. He works with Basscat, but that's it. But the smile, the look on his face. And then, like when you see Gussie come out there, and like when I was talking to him this morning, I said, "You got the most epic line ever." And he laughed and he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you said, 'Where's the trophy?' and you're looking around." Like, that was just like, "Where's the trophy? Come on." Like, I'm here. He didn't care about the check. Yeah, the money will sink in a day or two.
Yeah.
But the trophy, that's why I still have a few things here you've seen at the house. I'm not big on trophies. Like I told you about giving them to the Boy Scouts, so they could use them for their fishing derbies. I'm not big on material possessions in life because I don't really need them. I have the few things that mean a lot to me, and those are the things that I have and I keep, and I look at them once in a while and feel squishy. And it's really not about the money. The money becomes part of it, and the money makes it easier and all that stuff. But it's the fact that you won and you got the trophy.
Yeah.
You ask a tournament field of guys fishing. You go out with one of Andy's tournaments or Renegade or something, and they always have a question on the questionnaires from Renegade. I know this because I see it. They always have a question about budgets because Renegade isn't owned by somebody who runs it for profit. It's owned by the anglers.
Right.
As a group, eh? Like your entry fees, and there's a committee and all this stuff and a set of rules. So they always ask, how much of the budget would you like to see put toward medals and plaques and things? And if they say we're not going to do medals this year, it's like the end of the world. Like, don't get on the committee and say we're not giving you a medal for the top 10 or whatever, you know.
Right.
Like, guys collect this stuff. I still have all mine. You know, every once in a while I'll go out in the garage here and I'll get them out of the drawer. They're in the drawer. There's like 50 of them, and most of them are on ribbons or pieces of Dacron, or I had old musky line I put on them so you could hang. Every once in a while I'll hang them all around my neck and come in, walk through the house with them all jingling and jangling.
Mr. T.
Look at the wife and say, "Hey, what do you think of all these?" She'll just walk past me, shake her head, and keep going.
You know, and it's funny. I mean, you know, your wife, like all the other supportive wives and husbands who allow us to go out and do what we do, and of course the tournament trail is a whole different animal. But there is a huge commitment, huge sacrifice, and to see it all come together like it did in a way that it did for Jeff, because truly that I think is what makes it so special in my eyes, is that he went completely against the grain of thought and tried something new, tried something different that probably would never have been done. But as I think, who was it? Our buddy Cliff mentioned that next year, if it's on that same body of water, people will be targeting those fish. So it'll be interesting to see how different it is next year.
Yeah, it'd have to be the same time of year.
Kenneth, I appreciate you. You know, you say you're very that you love Canadians, and obviously you're from the States. We love you guys too, because we've sat back and since I was knee high to a grasshopper, watched a lot of incredible American anglers win these elite series and these Bassmaster championships and what have you. I will say it was a special moment being a Canadian, a proud moment as a Canadian, Jim, with Dave Mercer up on the stage announcing Gussy's win. And
when he got that trophy, I called Tammy. I said, "You've got to come watch this." And she was standing right beside me at my desk in the office here. We were watching on the laptop, or with it blown up big time. When he got that trophy, I welled up inside. I told that to Gussy. I said, "Tammy and I both just welled up inside." And I said, I squeezed a few out for you, buddy. It was just like I couldn't believe what I was watching. And when I was talking to Gussy this morning, I told that I said to him, he said, "Yeah, I almost welled up on stage." I said, "Almost." He said, "Okay, I welled up on stage."
You could
when his voice cracked, his voice starts to crack.
Yeah,
that's how you know you're right there, right?
And for no other reason than it all comes to a head, right? You've spent 4 days, 5 days, with the pre-fishing and whatever. You did something that was completely different than all other anglers, and it paid off. And all of the downs, all of the valleys that you've had to travel through, all of the bad times, bad situations. You just go on and on. All the negativity comes to an end at that point.
And I know exactly what he means too. Maybe not at this quite the same degree, but when I did it as a job too.
Yeah.
I wasn't a weekend tournament guy. I did it as a job. And when I would go to a tournament and Rocky and we would have a horrible event. And I remember there was times where, here, you keep the check. We only got like $800 this week, but we spent like $1,500. I like that. I welled up. I was bawling. I love that.
I did. Yeah, it's true.
Don't get me going. No. And like he'd take the money, or I'd take the money to pay the rent or something. I had three kids at home and everything else, and trying to do this for a living. You do promotions, you guide during the week. I'd be making jig heads for guys, burning my friggin' hands, 2 days a week to get the stuff done. And then, we've talked about this so much, and I just had a blessed run at it. And Gussy has too. Whenever there's no way that this whole thing for him was easy, and like you don't see, like he talked about that to me this morning too. He mentioned about how tough it was, the time being away from home and the traveling. You don't realize it, and for him especially, so he's driving 3,000 miles to go, or 3,500 kilometers to go fish the tournament. I was driving 500 or 600, and I was the only guys from Ottawa used to say to me, "You drove to Midland to go to a bass fishing tournament? Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
You know, when nobody was doing it. And now guys drive from Toronto over here in the same day. They come over and like they leave at 3 o'clock in the morning. They get here just at blast off, and they go back home.
Yeah.
You know, that type of, it's a complete different thing now than it was back in the infancy. And the time that he puts it, I was talking to one of the guys that fishes in FLW that's from Canada, and like with the way things are this year with this quarantining and everything, he would literally lose 60 to 70 days of his life because of the COVID thing. So that's why one of the guys, I think Eric Luzak, is staying down there for like a month or something. So he doesn't have to come back and forth across the border.
Yeah.
The time and everything else, the travel and the gas money, the whole deal, it's just as cheap to find a place to shack up for a month, fish a couple tournaments, and then come home. And that's what that's what a lot of the guys do. They all room together. They rent a house for a week or two or whatever, and take it from there. But it's not all peaches and cream. And then something like this happens, and it's just like you can't believe that it's happened.
Well, you know what, Jim? Thanks so much for sharing it with us. I'm sure if Gussie were here, he'd be thanking you as well for your support. I know you've been a big supporter of his, and you speak about him regularly. You speak to him regularly, and sharing this moment and his win.
He's my friend.
Yeah,
you know, he's my friend, and
it's amazing.
It's just I just think it's really cool that he takes the time at 6:45 in the morning to phone the old guy. It's neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, yep.
Well, buddy, I wish you a great week, and hopefully, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, everything works out, and we'll see you a little bit sooner than Monday.
Yep.
In the meantime, you stay classy, stay safe, and we'll talk to you next Monday for sure.
Are you trying to say there's times when I don't stay classy?
Nobody. In fact, I think a lot of us could learn a thing or two when it comes to staying classy from yourself. Yeah.
Be good, guys. Be safe.
Right on, buddy. Thanks for doing this, bud. As I said, it was great coming from you, speaking about it the way you did, because it means so much more hearing it from.
I'll have to get Gord Pizer to come on and talk about it sometime.
Right on. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right,
Take care,
Jim.
guys.
Take care, bud. Have a great night. And before we bring in Lawrence, let's have a word from our sponsor. I just got to find it. Oh, there it is. Boom! Hey, I saw you nod your head. I love that.
I love that tune. I love it.
did that, but I tell you what, I love it. It's a great video, and certainly it fits the mood with everything that went on with Gussy. As it is, this whole show is going to be dedicated to the man, the one, the only Jeff Gussy, Snow Leopard Gustafson. And Lawrence, you've met Gussy, you've had him on Bluefish Radio. Tell us your take on Jeff.
You know, look, this guy works hard, right? He guides, he's got a family, lives in the middle of nowhere. You know, he's not surrounded by a huge fan club. I mean, he lives in the country, right up in not far from North Bay, or Thunder Bay. But it's, you know, he has to be, you know, you talk about mental toughness. When you're out there and you're on your own and you got your family and you're thinking, boy, I got to leave my wilderness home and head down into the States every, you know, few weeks or whatever, and take on these, you know, these people that are just used to being fishing in around hundreds of people with helicopters flying by and camera boats everywhere. I mean, it's night and day from what he spends his life doing from his home, and then to throw himself back into that sort of spotlight over and over and over again, right? Not anyone can do that, I don't think. Not anyone can do that. That takes a specific type of dedication, confidence, and just, you know, just a commitment to go do it. And he does it like year after year now. You know, who'd have thought, you know, when he was first showing up in his Lund aluminum, right, and fishing in Okeechobee and in Florida and places, and there people were laughing at him, you know, fishing in a deep sea aluminum, and he did that for years. And, you know, he didn't care. He just went and did it. He just went and got the job done. Came in top 10, I don't know how many times, but he's always been a contender on so many opportunities. And yet when I talked to him and on Bluefish Radio last year, and we talk about, you know, his career and where he wants to go, and he's a young man. It's just, you know, he's just got this vision of where he wants to go with this, and now he's getting there. Now the vision is becoming reality, right? So it's an absolute testimony to mind over matter. If you visualize it, you can do it.
You know, and I know this is probably I don't want to say presumptuous of us, but I think all us Canadian anglers, am I wrong to say that we all took a little part of this championship? Like, absolutely, Gussy sacrifice, the drive, you know, but like, just because we're Canadian and we love the guy, like, you know, the guy's just such a solid dude. I don't know. I in a small way, it was all of our championship, because I truly believe that Gussy represents the majority of us anglers, and especially our CFN community. You guys are all solid and positive, and all the great stuff that you are. But yeah, in some way, somehow, it seems like all of our names were on that trophy along with Gussy's.
I think you're absolutely right, because he really does represent the heart of the CFN, right? I mean, where people are just knitted together. It's a community. It's not an individual. You know, I was watching that, and God bless the guy, you know, Tiger Woods, right? They were playing that documentary about him on the weekend. And here's a guy that needs nobody. You know, he just does his own thing. He was raised to be a self-sufficient man. He really is totally compartmentalized, you know, just goes out there and does it. But really, you know, I mean, a very independent. Like, he doesn't need people. He's not connected to people. He doesn't have that connection with people in any sort of deep way or open way or vulnerable way. And then you got people like, you know, the CFNers and Gussy, who just says, you know, hey, this is who I am. Like, if you don't like it, that's fine, but don't beat me up, you know, because I don't deserve that. That's who I am, right? He's Gussy. He fishes. He works hard. You know, he's not rock star. He's not a superhero. He doesn't pretend to be those things, but that's what makes him so amazing. That's why we love him, because you cheer him, but you also want to protect him. You know,
you're 100% right. And Christina, you hit the nail on the head. Gussy has shown young anglers, all anglers, not just young anglers, but all us anglers, that dreams do come true with hard work, vision, commitment, and perseverance. And that is the Canadian way. I mean, that has got to be written on a shirt somewhere. as the Canadian model, because that's what it's all about. And especially with, the American anglers, and there are some heavyweights down there that, he was sharing the water with, but you could just tell that, as maybe defeated as they may have seemed as fellow anglers, as fellow competitors, there was also that very strong half part of their character that truly worshiped the fact that Gussy won it. They were so happy to see him win it. So again, great sportsmanship. There were some great stories that came out of the tournament this past weekend, but no better than the one that saw Gussy on the last day, standing on the stage, holding the blue trophy as Dave Mercer announced his name. I thought it was awesome, and it was definitely a proud moment to be a Canadian and a Canadian angler.
He did it the Canadian way, He didn't step on anyone's hands going up that ladder, right?
Amen.
He didn't. He didn't have a big ego that just pushed people away and pushed people out. He didn't. He's a true gentleman, right? A true caring individual. You talk to him, you meet him, and he could be just a guy in the grocery store, at the hardware store. You wouldn't know if you wouldn't know, right? He's not. He doesn't carry this big, massive ego around. He's absolutely just a down-to-earth guy. Love him.
Now, you have an update for us for the BC Salmon. And I know Cliff is with us. Hopefully, he'll be able to chime in because he did have some different takes on some of the stuff that we discussed last week in regards to BC Salmon. But what's the update right now?
There's a lot of angles to this story. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of viewpoints. We put out the Bluefish news this morning. It's there on bluefishcanada.ca. There's an editorial I wrote about, the importance of shore fishing communities, right? People who have communities, who have lived in those communities for generations, who depend on fishing, who, for it's who they are, and it's how they make their money. And to just shut them down as the first approach by government, okay, we'll do that because that's an easy one. Just strike a line through something on a piece of paper, done. And that's what they did. And these communities rose up and said, no, it's not that simple. We are people. We have families. We have mortgages. We have loans. We have a way of life. We have communities that are based on this. And if you strike a line through this item on this regulation, a lot of people suffer. It's not just a big fishing boat going off and fishing somewhere else. These are people who, go out of their community, go fishing, come back the same day, and they're very committed to the resource. So, anyways, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans is hearing this. They're listening, and there's signs that they're listening, and the signs that the scientists are educating the politicians on this one, and the politicians are listening to the scientists. Mm-hmm. So it's a perfect storm of local knowledge and science coming together to inform the politicians, and they're listening. So there's hope. I'm told I'm communicating with some of the top dogs there in the Public Fishery Alliance just a few hours ago lately. And all day, and they're saying, Lawrence, it could be a good year. It could be a better year for us because it's totally doable. The science is out there. Like I said, there's lots of opinions. There's a lot of people who have fished all their lives out there who just said, everyone should just hang up their fishing rods for 5 years and just let the resource come back. And sure, that's an approach. But these are guys, that I talk to that also have careers. They're career biologists, they're writers, they're teachers, they're professors. So to hang up a fishing rod for 5 years, it's not the end of their life, right? It's a part of it's hard for them. It's a closure in their life, but it's not the end of their life. It's not going to change their life dramatically. So that it's not that easy for these people to do that. And why should they? When there's so many other things that would have more effect that need to be doing, and it doesn't involve a strike and something off a regulation, but actually a commitment to do something. I'm talking habitat, I'm talking, fish ladders, I'm talking, getting the other fisheries under control and exercising a little more control over some of these other fisheries that are impacting these wild fish stocks, doing more research, better tagging of hatchery fish in Canada. There's a lot of things that need to be done, and never mind all the wetlands along the coast of BC that have been, hardened and turned into wharfs and concrete, and putting those back into pristine condition so that when the smolts come back down the river, they have a place to hang out before they get swept into the ocean, right? That's a huge issue right now in the Fraser River. These salmon smolts come down the river and they got nowhere to stop. They're in the current, and next thing you know, they're out in the ocean. They haven't even had a chance to sort of habitualize to the salt water. And here they are thrust into the ocean, and they're just prime food for all the other predators out there, because they haven't built up their strength to flee and escape and avoid being eaten. So there's a lot of things that need to be done. And in the meantime, don't wail on these small communities. That's what they're saying. Just, cut us some slack. Let us go after the hatchery fish. And it seems to me that message is coming clear. So, I'm optimistic, and I'm told I have reason to be optimistic.
Well, and really at the end of the day, the fishery, and you speak to Cliff, there's varying degrees of the state of the fishery. Of course, there's science, and then there's, charter captains that are going out and targeting these fish on a regular basis. And sometimes, I don't want to say the science gets it wrong, but, a lot of it can be easily determined if you can see it, as opposed to research it and identify it through, gill netting, seine netting, and any other kind of netting type programs. But to me, is it the cart before the horse? We have the fish. The fishery, for the most part, is strong enough to be able to reproduce on their own. So do we fix the habitat before we start introducing more fish, or do we just start introducing more fish and hope that they figure it out with what habitat they have?
It's not a quantity issue. It's a habitat issue. It's a climate change issue. It's a whole bunch of things that have, logging, clear cutting in the headwaters, spawning beds that are silted because of logging and roads, overwarming, too much heating up because there's no tree cover. There's a lot of issues that need to be tackled. There's no doubt about it. And we need to get on that. And it's going to take a while to turn that around. So in the meantime, you can have a put and take fishery. You can have a put and take fishery using hatchery fish. But as far as what goes up those rivers to spawn and into those, you need to protect those native fish species. We can't replace them all with sort of a McDonald's salmon. We need to respect the native DNA in those various many different strains of fish stocks, wild fish stocks, and make sure that they have it. And if they can do it, and if they have the habitat, and then we can get that done properly and restored properly, then we'll have a solid fishery again, and a healthy ecosystem, right? A healthy ecosystem from here on forward. I was just reading the World Wildlife Fund, and we'll get into this next week a little bit more. I'm just doing my reading on this. It's a 49-page report on where have the freshwater fish gone, and they're looking at a global, picture here. So I look at the back of the report. Whenever I get a report like that, I always read from the back. Start with the back, the conclusions, right, and the annexes, and then work my way forward. Because I don't want to start with all the introductions and methodologies. I want to hear, okay, what are the main points, and then how did they get there? So I always read it backwards. And I go to the back of this WWF report, and there's like 60 pages of pictures and descriptions of freshwater fish, the 80 freshwater fish that the World Wildlife Fund has said have gone into extinction. And I'm reading and I go, and I don't know any of these fish. Like, none of these are fish from Canada or North America, right? Yeah. None of them. So they're looking at the big picture. But when they print these reports to raise the alarm bell and drive in donations and so forth, they don't make that distinction. They lump the whole world together, and it unfortunately gives Canada, the United States, a bit of a black eye, where we've been doing pretty good conservation on stuff like this for 100 years. Now, like I said, that Pacific salmon, there is some work to be done there in certain areas of the west coast of Canada. Not all of it, but there's some work to be done around the Fraser River and so on.
And you're right, David. There is a big hatchery program, but to Lawrence's point, and also Cliff has mentioned as well, Chinook salmon are doing very well in BC. However, from what I understand, the coho are not, and a lot of that is due to the fact that the rivers are warming up significantly, that are not allowing the returns of the cohos. Chinooks are still doing very well, but there is concern for our coho populations. But yes, absolutely. I mean, my point was, David, if is it a matter of just pumping out more fish, or do we start looking at the habitat and trying to improve that? Because, you know, we have a half decent fishery. We just got to build them a nicer home. I did, for lack of a better way of explaining it.
Yeah, you know, like what we're doing in Ontario, we have put and take fisheries in the Great Lakes where they put the salmon in, and you catch the salmon, you take them home and eat them. And they have a lot of fisheries like that in the United States as well. And there's nothing wrong with put and take fisheries. It's like farming. It's a crop. You plant it, you grow it, and you harvest it. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what they're talking about with the public fishery on the West Coast. That's their sustainability plan in the short term until the wild fish stocks rebuild. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, it shouldn't be confused with restoring and rebuilding wild fish stocks. That takes a different level of care. And those fish have to be a little bit more protected, a little bit more safeguarded, so that we don't lose those specific strains of fish, because that's our investment in the future, right? If things get really cold or get really hot, you have all these variations of salmon that will adjust or have already adjusted, and they'll start to dominate. And instead of just having one line or one DNA line of fish that's just going to either make it or not, you know, I don't want to we shouldn't be putting all our eggs in one basket, right? Like when it comes to this sort of thing. And that's what you see across Canada and the United States. More and more fisheries are being rebuilt and protected and preserved as for their wild DNA fish stocks. And that, for a lot of new anglers, a lot of millennial anglers, they're more interested in that than going out and catching, you know, a limit of hatchery fish and bringing them home. They want to catch just one fish that's an exotic fish and put it back, right? It's a new way of fishing. It's a new way of tourism, but it's not that new. I mean, people have been pursuing rare and interesting fish species, and it's like birding, right? You check them off your list, and it's just something you accomplish. And I think we can offer that in so much variety across Canada if we do it right. If we safeguard and preserve those wild fish species and make sure that they're strong, and then we can have great tourism, great jobs based around those fish and all the rest of it that comes with that.
Absolutely. And you know, as David just mentioned, the Vedder River took a hit this weekend, and as we talked about, Mike Robertson came on here and said they're having plus 13 degree weather, the extremes when it comes to weather out in the West Coast and Alberta would suggest that perhaps these fish are going to have to find a way to adapt to these extremes, because you know, there's not much you can hold back when it comes to Mother Nature. And you know, you get 30 centimeters of snow, and then 3 days later it starts to thaw. I mean, that's going to create things that, you know, it might be beyond our control to protect the fish, but we certainly can't quit. We got to continue to venture forward and look at new ways and new ideas, so that we can also help the fish adapt as well and take the extremes away. But yeah, no, absolutely, the weather's been all over the map out on the West Coast.
Yeah, and we need fish that can, you know, rally to those different types of situations, so that, you know, there's good times and bad times for all the different types of fish depending on the weather and that sort of situation. And face it, that's nature, right? Nature is like that. Our 11-year cycles and you know, it's solar cycles and so on. That we have a lot of variation in weather patterns. Climate change doesn't mean it's, you know, there's no more variation or it's just going in one direction. There's still a variation. In some cases, variations are getting more extreme. So it's important, I think, that we have this very nice wide diversity of fish. And not only that, I mean, just climate change aside,
amen.
It just really speaks to how much we care for the ecosystem, right? When we have these great different species of fish coming in different times of the year, and oh yeah, those fish go up that river, and and there's whole fisheries around that, and communities that celebrate that and take advantage of that, and get sustenance from that economically and food. We can get back to that.
Fraser River is a remarkable river, and we shared a Monster Monday feature today, and I forget the name of the charter and outfitter that does sturgeon fishing out on that body of water.
Yeah.
You want to talk about just like, holy crap, those things are huge. The gentleman, I believe he was the guide, was holding this, and it looked like he was wrestling a polar bear. Like the head on it was the size of a small truck. Like it was absolutely ridiculously huge. But Fraser River is a unique fishery in and itself. And absolutely, we need to do everything we can to help protect it and make it better. Steve Shaw came up with a good question. Any thoughts on hatcheries for bait fish that may help sustain the population? Obviously, less competitive food sources.
Yeah, and what kind of bait fish, though? That's the other issue, right? We see in the ocean now, on the West Coast and on the East Coast, bait fish moving up from the south. So these are bait fish that are leaner, less prone to worry about making it over cold winter. Our bait fish in Canada have really good, healthy fat supplies, because that's what gets them through the winter when their metabolism shuts down and their food source, disappears. They just eat their own fat and they get through the winter that way. So if we have these smaller, leaner, warmer water bait fish moving north on both sides of the coast of Canada, which we do, and then the salmon are eating these lean fish, they're eating fish that are not satisfying their nutrients requirements, right? They're eating fish that have low fat content. We see this on the East Coast now. We see this on the West Coast. So we're not getting as big a fish. We're getting more skinny fish, not the big plump, fat fish that we're used to seeing, because there's the food source. So what do? Throw in a whole nother bunch of minnows to compete? I mean, there's only so much biomass in the ocean that can support bait fish. So are you just going to add another type of bait fish where there's already bait fish? It's not like there's no bait fish. There's just the wrong type of bait fish. And that's the problem we seem to be experiencing on both coasts now.
Interesting. And it is true. And biomass is something that if you don't understand, it's basically, think of biomass as a fridge, and there's, that fridge can feed only 6 people. If all of a sudden the house starts to have 7, 8, 9, now all of a sudden people are having to ration and go without. So biomass, it is a finite amount of food for all fish, and unfortunately trying to find the balance with the amount of commercial fishing that goes on, whether it be for shrimp or anything else, like we do have to find a balance. You're 100% right. But introducing fattier bait fish and forage fish is definitely a good idea. And as David mentioned, there is a hatchery for herring. There's a great source when it comes to a fatty forage base right there.
Oh yeah, but I've talked to experts. We have herring fisheries on the West Coast, right? Mm-hmm. And they've diminished that population of herring by like 75% or more. And it's just commercial, and they're just taking these fish for their eggs. They're not even, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's a totally unsustainable fishery that the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, here's another one. DFO, hello. Weighed in on that stupid herring fishery you got going on the West Coast there. That's, making one guy a lot of money and maybe a bunch of jobs for people who work on his boats. But you're wiping out the food source, a very essential food source for the Chinook salmon and the other salmon on the West Coast. Like, that's a bit of a no-brainer, but it's politics. Maybe these guys making donations, he's got friends in high places. It's no, you're taking on the big wigs there, right? The big alpha business person. A little bit intimidating for politicians. They don't necessarily go toe to toe with those types of people. So we need to hold the politicians' feet to the fire on this one And again, DFO will say, look, you got to look after the little guy here and make sure, and that means getting this all sorted out, getting these bigger problems sorted out so that the ecosystem, which includes these coastal communities, are sustainable.
Amen. Well, as I said, we're going in the right direction.
Yep.
Seems as if there's change coming on our West Coast, and that's exciting. That's good news. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, Dave, absolutely. You have a big seal problem on the West Coast as well as on the East Coast. Everywhere we seem to go, there's too many seals. Now, on your Feel the Bite segment, what did you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I'm very interested in Mop It Up, right? I love that idea. And when I mentioned with Big Jim, he said, "Oh, Lawrence, you can't do that. You have to be able to see your sonar." And I say, "Yeah, blah blah blah." I've been living with that one for too many years, right? I'm not saying it's not important, but I have sonar systems on my Ranger. And I'll have a guy on the front of the boat, and he'll stand over the sonar under the Tarova, and targeting whitefish at 50 feet down. And he goes, "Okay, Lawrence, they're 50 feet down." And I'll just peel off line off my reel. Okay, that's about 50 feet. Bonk. And who's catching fish, right? Him, me? Well, we're both catching fish. But I'm sometimes catching more fish. Why? I don't know. Maybe because I'm not just focused on one fish.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, both of us learned something. It's a technique that I've used. I just didn't know what it was called.
I think it's cool that they do it with a fluke, and I really need for Big Jim to put that thing in my hand. I really want to see how they're rigging that, because there's so many different styles of jig heads. Yeah. And is that a vertical presentation once that bait's rigged up, or how do you keep
totally vertical, totally straight up and down?
Really?
It's not your typical setup. Like if you're jigging for one way in the spring, it's not that idea.
Yeah.
It is literally just sitting your bait as still as possible, and maybe fluctuating when it comes to the waves and water current and what have you, but straight up and down, and it makes it for an easy target for fish. Now, as I said, I've used the presentation. I just never knew what it was called.
Well, we've all targeted suspended fish, and we've all ripped our hair out targeting suspended fish, right? Like they're the curse. We put the sonar on our boats so we can find these suspended fish, so we can rip our hair out because we can't get them to bite.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They're brutal. But I'm going to give this a try. I mean, we've doing these spy baits. That's another way of doing it. And people have been drop shotting on Lake Erie for the big smallmouth in summer. I mean, that's how you catch the big smallies on Lake Erie. You just cruise around, and you're looking at your sonar, and you go, "Oh, there's one 40 feet. Oh, there's one 30 feet." You drop down, and you see it happening in real time on your sonar. But it's picking one off after another. That's a sort of way of fishing, I guess. It's a way to win a tournament. It's a way to do it for sure.
Well,
sure.
And I'll tell you, there'll be a lot of us that I'll be looking forward to using that kind of presentation in the coming year. And, with weather the way it is, I mean, I know our Western anglers, they're still dealing with 36 plus inches of ice. So spring has a little bit yet before it comes, because you got to get rid of all that ice first. But this way, the weather is starting to lean towards an early spring. We are getting a blast of cold out here tonight. Picked up, but I know, with a wind like this, again, boating season, softwater season can't come soon enough.
Oh man. Like I'm at the Ottawa Boat Show right now, the Toronto Sportsman Show. We're going to be starting at the Cottage Show here soon. Virtual, right? It's all virtual. But one thing I wanted to mention, Scotty, too, is we just launched the Bluefish Canada YouTube page, the YouTube channel. So subscribe away. If we get, I don't know how many subscribers we need, but then we can actually have a YouTube channel that actually has the name in it instead of like 4,000 digits. But we've got a lot of original content. A friend of mine put it together, one of our volunteers for Bluefish Canada. So she approached me and said, "Lawrence, let me organize your YouTube content. It's all over the map. Let's put it in one spot here. Let's organize it." make it available. And I think we have 32 original videos and links to a bunch of other stuff I've done for TV on there, like 5 documentaries. And one documentary is we'll have, I won't tip my hat on that yet. That's coming next week. We'll make an announcement on that, buddy. But hey, anyways, just Google Bluefish Canada YouTube, subscribe, please, so we can get that channel tag, and that would be so nice. And you know, there's some cool stuff there. There are lots of stuff on Feel the Bite, and I think you'll appreciate the content you see there. It's well made. I've had the benefit, really fortunate to have some great producers build some stuff with me, and I love creating video content. I just really enjoy it, and I think you'll find that the quality is not bad. Like production value wise, it's up there. You know, a lot of it's TV quality or more. So check it out. Let me know.
We'll do for sure. And I invite all of you to do the same. Lawrence, as always, buddy, thanks so much for doing this, joining us and giving us an update on everything that's going on in our fisheries and Canada in general at large.
Oh, what a great show celebrating Jeff's win. And man, just listening to Jim, he was so animated, so happy, and I'm so happy. It's so fantastic.
It really is. As I said, you know, we all sort of take a little piece of this to ourselves, and we do it in an unselfish manner just because we're so darn proud of a fellow Canadian and a class act in
absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on, and thanks everyone for taking the time to listen to me rant on about things fishy.
Right on, buddy. We'll see you next Monday, my friend.
All right, buddy.
All right, bud. Stay safe. So I just wanted to get back Ryan French. He wanted me to say during the live show that he wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone for the well wishes, as he has been diagnosed, unfortunately, with COVID. And it is definitely difficult times. I'd like to say, Ryan, that you just did. You just thanked everybody. And what is really cool is we have some people from quite a ways away. My good buddy, Gene, who is from Pennsylvania, is watching. And Gabriel dos Santos from Argentina. Thanks for joining us. As I said, it's pretty cool to have all you guys here and gals from all across the world, not just Canada, but all across the world. Now, before we bring in our good buddy Jay, he asked me to play a video for you. So let me cue that up and get that ready. He's going to tell us the significance of this, but it's kind of cool. Have a look. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. You asked me to download that, and I'm thinking, where in God's green earth is that? That's Trout Opener, and
that is Trout Opener in Bennett Park, Missouri today. So March 1st is the opening day of trout season. Heather just came downstairs, and she's like, "Why do I hear tornado sirens in the basement?"
Yeah, that probably wasn't the best. No, you're right. Holy crap! That's quite a few trout anglers celebrating that day.
And you know what? You know what? And I know some anglers who are watching this right now are looking at all those anglers thinking, "I'm never going to fish there." But let me tell you a little bit about that situation. The gentleman who fired off the starter pistol His name is Wayne. I wrote it down here. Wayne Simpson. So Wayne, they honor somebody every year at this event. That's the guy with the vest who handed off the gun. He's a biologist with the Missouri Department of Conservation, which is like their M&R. And they honor somebody every year. And Wayne Simpson was identified as being a mentor to all kinds of anglers. He's been fishing in that park for trout opener for 47 years. And so he got to fire off the starting pistol for the opening of trout season today in Bennett State Park. So, and they interviewed guys and girls after. It's something you can see actually if the video plays, you'll see fish being caught, whatever. But what's so cool is the celebration of fishing, right? You know, and I think a lot about, yeah, we go to get away from people sometimes. And I understand that what they were doing was not following COVID guidelines. Okay. So we're not judging today. But what I enjoyed about that was the celebration of the sport. They're recognizing someone like Wayne Simpson, you know, and just all of it. And as much as, you know, Scotty, you and I have kind of, I know when I say joked, but we're only half joking, like, you know, you and me, like, we need to go to Brainerd, Minnesota for the JCs,
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
Because that's a celebration of the sport.
Yeah.
We celebrate the sport of fishing, and it's just great sometimes to, you know, as much as we love to get away from it all, sometimes you just need to let her out, have a good time, and go fishing and enjoy it, right?
And that's, you know, again, that's truly what it is. It's cool that today's show is basically all about celebration, but
it is.
You know, at the end of the day, it has been difficult. We have found ways to adapt, much like the fish do, but we've still managed to get out and enjoy our passion and enjoy some resemblance of a community with social distance fishing. You've certainly done. And listen, I want to take this opportunity right now on behalf of all of CFN. You sharing your family adventures and journeys have really helped us get through all of this. So on behalf of all of CFN, your wife, Trevor, and Stephanie, and yourself, buddy, thanks so much for all you do.
Well, you know, I have to say, and I tell anglers this all the time. You know, I'm 46 years old. I've been fishing my whole life, but you know, when I became a real avid angler, I was probably in my late teens, and it's all about networking and making friends and associates. You know, Scott, you know that, right? And we're not talking about companies like Berkeley and others and Raw Fish, and those are all my friends too. But it's making these great relationships in the industry, and not just in the industry, but just people that you meet. You know, and this particular instance was the ice hut that we were using was a friend's ice hut. This gentleman who I do a lot of work with in the fishing industry. I'm not going to name him or call him out, but I do a lot of volunteer work with him. We raise a lot of money for all kinds of local charities through fishing. He's like, you got to come to my ice hut. Got to come to my ice hut. And I don't want to go there all the time. I don't want to take advantage of that. But I looked at the weather forecast and I see our local ice is winding down. I said, I got to take the family to this location. And I'm not going to give it away. And that's under respect for the owner. But I'm going to tell you, it's just off Lake Erie, and the piranha, it was like a piranha tank of panfish, man, like an absolute piranha tank of panfish. And the girls, like, I couldn't keep up with the numbers of fish that Stephanie was catching at one point. And you know, you got to be the guide sometimes too. And so it was just great. And then to top it all off, Heather went and got some takeout from one of our favorite local restaurants that we haven't been going to much because of COVID. And I took a picture of us in the ice hut, tagged them on Instagram, and they sent me a message, and they thanked me for that. And they thanked us for the business and promotion. And this restaurant, Scotty, also supports fishing, because when we have events down in our area, they open early for anglers that are coming through. They'll open early for breakfast at 5 a.m. One day it was bad weather. They set up a tent for me to keep our equipment dry.
No way.
Yeah, man. So like, it's not just about the food. It's a family, right? So just something really cool. And yeah, and bring us back to where we started with the show tonight, to Gussy, right? It's all about family. And, you know, I watched the weigh-in yesterday with Heather and Trevor and Stephanie. And dude, I got weepy. I'm not gonna lie, man. I was all teary-eyed for Gussy because you know, I don't know Gussy that well. I've met him a few times. Since in the last couple of years, I've talked to him more. I had the pleasure of seeing him at the Classic last March, the week before the pandemic hit. And I asked him if I could take a picture of him with Trevor. And it was the most gracious, unrushed. He's like, yeah, man, of course. And because that was Gussy's first Classic. And I have a picture of him and Trevor backstage. And I'll always remember that picture and how gracious he was to talk to us. And since then, I've developed a bit of a rapport with Gussy. He's just a great guy. He's a good human. Never mind a great angler. He's just a good human being.
Dude,
and
you can't emphasize that enough. You're so right. That it just, even when we had him on here on live, you know, to give you guys sort of some background, you know, he was having a hard time getting the link. His Wi-Fi wasn't the greatest, and the whole time apologetic. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You know, this isn't really working. Scotty, I'm sorry. Buddy, you don't have to apologize. you know what? This is the first time you've done this. First time I'm throwing stuff at you that you've never done before. So you have no need to apologize. And he was just, am I late? You weren't waiting too long, were you, buddy? Just a solid dude. I can't say enough about him. Yeah,
I just sit there and he had it in the bag. Like he literally had it won by, I don't know what time, pretty early on the day. It reminds me of in 2007. In 2007, Timmy Horton, not the coffee guy, but the bass angler. Yep. There's a whole story behind that. We'll talk about that another night. But Timmy Horton, he won an event on Lake Champlain where he was fishing for largemouth in Ticonderoga, which is a good 70-mile run from Plattsburgh. He won the event on the last day, handily won it. He ran back early. He couldn't leave his boat though because of tournament rules. He had to stay in his boat at the dock, just to follow the rules. And his marshal couldn't leave the boat either. So there's a famous picture of him ordering pizza, eating pizza at the dock, and flipping through Instagram yesterday. I saw a photo of Gussy eating pizza.
No way.
In the boatyard. And that's when I messaged him and I'm like, congratulations, man. And so happy for you. And by the way, this reminds me of the time Timmy Horton, and I'm so happy to see you eating pizza. And I know you're not relaxed, but it's like, you won. And the photo session today on Bassmaster and it shows Gussy like driving up and kind of, you can almost see his emotions. Like he knows he won, but like he's such a humble individual, right? And you're right there with him. So, man, it's just just a great weekend of fishing, man. For the family, for the fishing family in Canada, and that includes Gussy.
And I'll be honest with you, Gussy. I want to thank you for making me follow something that I can honestly say I don't necessarily have the time to do. And perhaps maybe not, full interest. But as I said, I was watching every day, even if I was busy doing something somewhere else, I had it down, minimized on the screen on my phone, but dude, it was cool all around.
It's funny, after the Classic, Gussy reached out to me because I took a picture of my Ontario Bass Nation hat that Rawfish makes, and I set it on the stage at the Classic, and I took a picture of our hat, the OBN hat, on the stage with the Classic and the screen in the background. Just a cool picture. And he actually messaged me and he goes, dude, I hate to ask, but can I have one of those hats? I'm like, oh, you'll get a hat, buddy. If you want. And there's been cool pictures of him wearing that OBN hat. And I don't care about promoting the OBN. I think that's great. It's a great organization to promote. But that's the kind of guy that Gussy is, right? He wants an OBN hat. He's going to get an OBN hat. And he felt like he was so humble in asking. He wasn't like, it's just his character. So, I don't know him as well as other people, but I definitely just love that he is who he is and what he does for the industry. Whether you're a bass angler or not, you gotta love Jeff Gustafson.
Amen, brother. And he made me he made me an honest man yet again, because I'm a true believer that good things happen to good people, and that certainly came true this weekend on behalf of Jeff and all us Canadian anglers who are, again, just so darn proud of him, and looking forward to a chance to talk about it. But Jim did a fantastic job being up, and I know Jim's not lying when he says he welled up, because he was texting me yesterday and he's like, dude, he's gonna do it. Like he was like a true fan, and getting that perspective was really cool. I'm like, yes, Jim, I'm watching it too, man. He's doing awesome, and he's like, he's gonna do this, man. He's gonna do this. So it was really cool. It was all around cool.
And even yesterday, like, I didn't want to go. I hate to say this, but I didn't want to go ice fishing yesterday. I didn't want to leave the house, even after I knew that he had won, based on he had 5 fish, and I know Bass Track can be off, but I'm like, I want it. This is like watching the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup or whatever. It's like I need to watch all of this. So I kind of did stuff yesterday, but I had a hoodie on, and I had like the phone, like the live feed you could playing, like any room I was in, the live feed was playing in the background because I had to know what was going on. So, yeah, Christina, that's right. So,
listen, as Jim and I mentioned, you've got the 3 of them now, the 2 Johnson boys as well as Gussie. And every time we flick on one of these events, we hope that one of those 3, if not all of those 3, are in the top 10, and perhaps one of them leading. Because, as I say, I've now become a fan. As I said, I've never really watched bass tournaments like I did yesterday. That was the first time I've ever done that. But again, thanks to Gussie for doing it.
So it just I don't know more. I can't say anything more about Gussie.
Absolutely,
great guy. So
now, upcoming, the reason that we were showing that video, trout opener is right around the corner.
Yeah, so today is March 1st. So just so everyone knows about this, there's two first days of spring. There's the astronomical, or whatever it is, where it's the equinox, which happens this year on March 20th. But there's the meteorological first day of spring. Today's the first day of spring by the meteorologists. So the first day of March.
I'm sorry, Jay. From where I'm sitting, it's spring.
Well, welcome to Canada. I commented on Chris Murphy's tweet today because he put up the long-range forecast for Winnipeg and Ottawa. In Winnipeg, it's like -7 highs, and Winnipeg's like +7 highs. So that's pretty cool. Like, it's Canada, eh? So
absolutely. And Mike Robertson, who came on, who's our Alberta province provincial ambassador, +13, and literally they were dealing with like extreme cold warnings.
Yeah,
not more than less than a week ago.
Well, even down in Long Point, I might have mentioned this to a few people, but February 5th, we had a big windstorm, and we lost a ton of ice down in Long Point and off Port Rowan, actually. So the St. Williams ice held, but further down the bay, because the bay's big, they lost a ton of ice. But that's where I've been fishing. So I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I've been out there on 5 to 7 inches of ice, even more in some spots. And that was open water 3 weeks ago, and it froze over that quick. And good black ice. Like, I wasn't nervous out there. I wasn't taking any chances, and nobody was. But boy, oh boy, like, it's funny how quickly the weather can change, Scotty. A month ago, I was ready to bust out the center pin, right? Keep steelheading. There was very little. I was chasing ice. I was trying to not drive all over Ontario because of a pandemic, to stop doing that, stay close to home. And it's turned into a real bumper of an ice season, given how it started. It hasn't been great, but geez, we really have made out well this year for ice fishing. And it's not going to last, but it is what it is. And I'm happy people got out. I got out. It's been great.
And I think something that I wanted to ask your opinion on, when you get into these blustery days, these days that have winds that are in excess of 50, 60 kilometers. I think we've had some gusts that are close to the 80 kilometer mark. For anglers that are heading out on big bodies of water like Simcoe, obviously you have to be cautious regardless and at all times, but more so now than ever with these kind of winds because it starts to shift ice.
Yeah, like the shore ice is already starting to break up in some places. Not in any place where there's an incoming stream or any kind of hard surface, we'll start to see shore ice breaking up, even if there's 12 inches on the lake. So I was talking to the kids about this on the weekend. We're fishing on 12 inches, but if the shore ice breaks up, we can't get out there. Now, a younger me would get waders and a John boat and stupid, right? But, that was the younger me. But now I'm a little more careful about things like that. And I know people who still want to take chances, but they need to be careful. It does not take a lot when the shore ice gets weak for the wind to really tear up the lake. And you hear stories all the time as we get closer to ice out that you could wake up one morning and the lake's covered in ice, and the next day the ice is gone, right?
Sorry to cut you off. There was a time lapse, I think, on Lake Michigan. I forget what town it was, but it was one of those weather cameras that was focused down on the shoreline, and the ice was quite a ways out. I don't want to say it was a half a kilometer, but it was pretty close to half a kilometer out. And it had a time lapse, and literally within hours, it's all gone. The wind had literally ripped it away from shore, and it broke it into a million pieces. And then all of a sudden, it was open water before the sun even went down. So it's amazing nature and the winds and how that can affect our ice.
Yeah, like we're not talking in southern Ontario, and I'm going to say North Bay South. I don't hear a lot of talk about auger extensions this year. We got a foot of ice, even on the big lakes, maybe a little more. Lots of slush right now because the lakes were so late to freeze. We've had lots of lake effect snow in some areas. So we have lots of snow on the ice, which insulates the ice. We have lots of slush on the ice. It's not a good year for ice, and I think it started out a little touch and go, and I think it's going to end a little touch and go, and it's going to end quick when it happens. But
and judging by the temperatures and this topsy-turvy weather forecast that we have in front of us just here in Ontario, and obviously our folks out west are dealing with it as well. It's going to get sketchier and sketchier. But Lloyd just mentioned, I think he's safe, and they are talking auger extensions out in Saskatchewan as they're dealing with 34 inches plus of ice still yet.
We have so this is still going on. Our regional staff for fisheries and oceans, we actually have an online contest happening for ice fishing, and I'm gonna knowingly admit I have not been as competitive as I was last summer with the contest, because the categories are things like northern pike and walleye and lake trout, and where I live, it's just not happening, and I'm not going to drive to places to chase those fish. But seeing my colleagues out in the prairies, catching lots of fish, and they're having to put their extensions on, they're having a blast, and I'm happy for them. Because for 2 or 3 weeks, when we were in the glory of ice fishing 2 weeks ago, they were hunkered down, man. Like they was minus 40 with the wind chill. So just unbelievable.
You don't want to start a vehicle in that. You don't want to walk outside in that. You don't want to bear the wind in that. It's never mind fishing in it, even just getting to where it is and getting a tent set up. When things go wrong, your heater breaks down, your tent has a rip in it, your drill doesn't work, minus 40 degree weather is not something you want stuff falling apart in.
No, I can recall being at college, man, in the one winter and walking home. I lived at the north end of town, like Lindsay, I was at Fleming, and I'm at the north end of town. I had no car, and the college at the south end. And I can remember minus 30 without the wind chill, hiking home after a night lab, and it being cold. Like, it scarred me, man. Like, I think I actually have scars, you know, because I probably wasn't. I remember one time wearing, I had a whole tough duck suit at Fleming. That's an okay attire to wear. And I wore that whole suit to school one day because I had to hike all the way across town. It was like minus 30 or something, man. It was crazy. So that, I don't miss that real cold weather, but it does make for good ice fishing. And this year, some of our local waters, I never got on Hamilton Harbor this year to chase channel cats and those big Hamilton Harbor walleye.
Yeah.
It just never got cold enough. A few anglers got out there with their spuds and that, but they went out there for a day or two, and that was it. You know, there was this little narrow window. So yeah, I still hope that we could have some good ice, but I think ice is winding down, man. Saw some pictures today of guys out doing some spring walleye fishing in the southern rivers, and you know, we just keep rolling along, buddy. We got lots of fishing to do.
By the sounds of it, we have nothing to complain about. Gabrielle from Argentina says, here in Argentina, for 1 year and 2 months, you cannot do boat fishing in saltwater as well as in freshwater, and you do not know until when you will not be able to go fishing. I'm not sure if that's because of the rainy season or high level waters.
Wow.
But
I don't know. That's not good. Here I am complaining about,
right?
You know, do I put the short rods away? I'm not doing that yet, and get the long rods out. But yeah, like like Alicia just chimed in. Walleye's open until the 15th on the Thames, and so in zone 16 where we are, walleye's open until the 15th, and so it's always nice to try and slide down to the Thames or the Sid and try and catch a walleye before season closes. Then the red horse suckers will start coming on soon, in the catfish too. So it's there's always something to do. But I'm gonna try and make a run to Simcoe. Trevor wants to go try and catch a couple of big perch for that DFO contest that I'm in, and I got a date with the crappie on Rice Lake that they didn't cooperate last time I was there. But you know, I've done 18. So my goal this year was 150 trips. I've done 18 trips so far. So I'm slacking. I got to get moving.
Well, listen, you can blame it on COVID.
I blame it on COVID slowing me down.
Absolutely. Randy's saying that steelhead are on the piers and at the mouths of the rivers, so they are staging and ready to come.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
You're right, Randy. You're right. They are staging. I had a buddy who was out catching them on the weekend too. So there's always something to fish for people that don't know what to do. There's always something out there. You know, don't think there's nothing to fish for. Always something to catch, especially this time of year. Especially in the spring, there's so much to fish for. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, listen, not to beat a dead horse, but Gussy's win certainly has given us all the itch, right?
Oh yeah, like it's the way, you know, I was listening to you talk with Lawrence about the way Gussy caught those fish moping, you know, and I'd seen that video before, but if anyone in Canada has fished for a walleye, you've done some moping at one point or another.
I knew what it was called. I never knew that. Like, because when Jim explained it before we came on air, I'm like, wait a minute, I do that all the time for walleye. This isn't anything new. I just
like I'm sure that when Gussy's doing it, like he's so dialed in. Like I'm sure he's doing stuff that we would, you know. Sometimes it's those subtle things, right? Like, I'll give you an example. So on the weekend, I fished with the family, and then Heather went home early because she was just kind of tired of being cold. And Stephanie wanted to stay for the night bite. So they sat in the hut. I fished outside. And so let me tell you, I got 30 minutes to myself. I made the most of it. And I smashed the panfish, smashed them. Nice. And it was because I was focused. You know, I wasn't guiding anymore. I'm fishing, and I was focused on the task. And, you know, and I kept about, I don't forget how many I kept, but I kept a few. And then at the end, I caught a bunch of nice ones. I'm going to keep some of these too. The kids walked out, and Dad had panfish on the ice, and Trevor's like, "Did you just catch those?" I'm like, "Yep." He goes, "You've only been out for 20 minutes." I'm like, "Oh yeah," because focused. And so you think about with Gussie, he's so focused on that technique. Like you could do the same thing. You and I could go to the same spot with the same outfit, all the same gear, same technology. We wouldn't catch anything, and Gussie would catch them all, right?
Well, and Jim
he's so dialed in
on it, and it makes perfect sense because especially on that last day when you see him out in the wind and in the rough waves and water, that's not fun. Like if you're going out to enjoy a day of fishing, you're not doing that. Obviously, you have to if you're in a tournament, you're running for first place and what have you. But that wouldn't be fun. There'd be fun in that.
He's got to make a living, right? That's his job. Yeah. So it's I'm not going to compare my job to Gussie's, but I always compare myself a little bit to the professional anglers in the fact that we work in almost any weather. Rarely do we not work. It has to be basically a wind warning. And even then, I'll still play the wind based on, am I in the lee of the wind or what have you. And, you'll go to like a boat ramp and let's say I'm launching the boat in Rondo Bay and a couple of anglers are going out and it's a beautiful sunny day, Scotty. And everyone's like, "Oh, you have the best job in the world." And the next day, the temperature drops 10 degrees. It's 25 mils of rain. I got my rain suit on. I'm soaking wet before I even get on the boat. There's no one there to thank me and tell me what a great job I have and all that, right? Like when I see Gussie standing in those waves, I'm like, that's respect, because it takes a lot to be able to do that in that kind of weather constantly, let alone for me hauling nets and stuff. He's focused on a little tiny jig in 25 feet of water, just and all the pressure he's got on it too, right? Like just amazing. They can do that in that weather. They're true professionals.
Amen. And moping, yes, absolutely, Christina. I do a lot of moping when I don't catch any fish either.
Oh yeah, Trevor mopes a lot. He's a professional moper, let me tell you, when he doesn't do well.
So outside of Lake Simcoe and the Kawarthas for your crappie, what else have you got upcoming?
That's about it. It's funny because I was joking the other night with a couple friends online about how Trevor likes to make plans. Like he's already planning spring pike fishing, spring cat fishing. Like he has plans, Scotty. Wow. He's filled every date in the calendar with something to do.
Well, he's not hockey, right? There's no hockey, so
there's no hockey.
There you go.
So, but with COVID, I take it 1 week at a time, and like let's say I say I'm going to go to Rice next weekend, but the ice is going to break up or 2 weeks from now. So I really what I try and do is just I'm ready. I got everything ready. What are we going to go do? And this time of year, get crazy because I might literally have in my basement here, which is since COVID has gone from being a mini sticks arena to a fishing organization center. Okay. So you got ice fishing stuff. Soon there'll be some steelheading gear coming out of the storage room, and soon there'll be some walleye and some catfish gear. So the room is going to get full, and that's how it was last year. And we are going to fish. And I'm hoping this year we don't have to go through this whole boat ramps are closed and parks are closed and anglers aren't struggling just to go wet a line. I don't mind shore fishing. Scotty, I just want to catch fish. Amen. If it's in a boat, great. If it's on the shore, great. But don't completely lock me out again. If it wasn't for my friends who had private property, literally, man, I wouldn't have fished for a long time. So we just need, I hope society realizes that we don't need to worry about as much about denying access. This is my opinion. Those are not the vectors for this whole thing. So let's keep people going outside. I'll be ready to fish for whatever comes at us. Do I hope for a warm spring? I really don't care. If spring hurries up and get here, I got something to do. If the ice stays, I got something to do. Going fishing, make it happen, man. No worries.
And I'll be honest with you, my prediction is that they won't do that. They won't close the boat ramps for the simple fact that I don't believe that we're treating, even with the variant that's coming out now, I don't believe we're treating it like we did last year at this time, where it was sheer panic. Everybody was just, everybody's going to die who gets this.
Yeah.
And what have you. I think we're treating it a little bit different. I for one, I'll be honest with you, I've got a COVID hangover. Like I'm done with it. And to our buddy Ryan French and the entire French family, who unfortunately he was just diagnosed with it. As I said, no disrespect at all, Ryan. As I said, buddy, we hope nothing but you're on the mend, and hopefully you find a way to persevere through this. But I know a lot of people have just like, enough's enough, man.
Yeah, because again, you gotta take your precautions and be careful, and it is frustrating. I really pray for those who are suffering from this, and it's not just those who are inflicted with the illness, but those like frontline workers. Yeah. But man, like if you look at, so I follow a doctor on Twitter, and she posts the case counts every day, positivity rates, and I like it because to me it's very objective science. I believe it's the actual truth of what we're getting, and I just look at it real quick. It's like, yep, there we are. Well, the new curve, the flatten the curve, is in Ontario is like 1,000 cases a day, 1,000 cases a day. Like we are not dropping below 1,000 cases a day on the 7-day average. We are staying at 1,000 cases. And you're like, come on, why can't we just
see? And that's exactly why I say I don't believe we're going. If we do have this third, I mean, we're not done the second wave. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We have a third wave. I don't know that we're going to treat it as we did this time last year, where we were starting to panic, and it was literally within another week or two that it all started.
Yeah.
To think that we've been at this a year now, Jay, like holy crap, eh?
I know, and I just think that everyone's got their opinions. This is mine. We got to get vaccinations in arms.
Yeah,
that's the only way we're going to get this over with.
Amen.
I'm not, and people can have their viewpoints on vaccines, and I don't like getting political, but my grandparents live 3 blocks from here, and I haven't held their hand or hugged them since last March. Okay, and Opa's 93, and Oma's 86, and I want them to get a vaccine so I can hug them again.
Yeah.
Straight up, like and that's my opinion. But I think with everything that's going on in society, not everyone's staying home. People are hungover. They're tired, Scotty. Just like you said, I fully agree. Burned out from COVID.
Yeah.
We need to get needles in arms. I'm disappointed with how slow Canada's rolling out the vaccine. I know we don't have the stock, but why don't we have the stock? I'm not going to get into that either. But I'm just saying, I think that's the only way we're going to get there. And the sooner we get vaccines in arms, the sooner we get back to more whatever normal is. I think that's the only way we're going to do it. And not everyone's going to get a vaccine, but we got to get the numbers up somehow. So let's hope. But let's also hope that we can stay outside and keep going fishing. And just like last year, if you recall, in March, we had a beautiful early spring. And it helped with all the lockdown. I remember the kids were outside riding their bikes like when we were locked down in March and April every day. So I'm okay with an early spring. I love ice fishing, but hey, let's just whatever comes, we're ready. But let's just all be strong together, and we're going to be good. We're going to be just fine.
Absolutely, buddy. Well, as always, you certainly know how to word things so eloquently and hit the nail on the head as you did. As always, my friend, I always love sharing these Mondays with you. To really just sit back and see what you're going to bring to us. And this video that you told me to download, I had guys in the truck. They were saying the same thing. What in the world? What, they're having tornadoes? I know the wind's picking up, but yeah, it was funny stuff.
Let's celebrate fishing. And I've never seen a trout opener celebrated like that. But like I said, I'll leave everyone with this thought: celebrate every time you get to go out fishing. And I think inside, some of us are weighing with the starter pistol, right? Even if you're at the dock by yourself, you are weighing with the starter pistol, and you hear the siren going off. Let's go, right?
Amen.
So let's go fishing. Thanks, everybody.
On that note, let's revisit and cherish in a moment that we will not soon forget. Thanks, Jay, for sharing your Monday night with us, and we will see you next Monday. Right here,
everyone.
Same channels. All the best. Take care, guys. Enjoy.
Day number 1, he has led this wire to wire. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, hold it high. Oh, Canada! The Tennessee River gets peppered by the great Canadian snow leopard. Jeff Gustafson dominates the guaranteed rate Bassmaster Elite on the Tennessee River. Gussy gets it done and finishes in spot number 1. And for the second time in as many years, the Big Blue Trophy goes north of the border. Let's hear it for him, ladies and gentlemen.